And I can proudly announce Tomas will take it from here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fleming. Thanks for the invitation. Really nice to be in the cold Denmark. Okay, to more or less to frame my talk, I'm an urbanist. I am from Venezuela, so I studied about cities for 7 years more or less in South America. Then I moved to Barcelona and I started to work with digital fabrication. Basically, I was part of the team starting the Fab Lab Barcelona around 7 years ago. And it's kind of funny because now it's a moment in time in which Fab Labs and cities are getting together. I'm going to explain to you more or less what is that about. But also I would like to look a little back in history and the relationship between technology, humans, and cities itself. And I think we're in a very interesting moment in our history. And if you think about, we have always looked at space since many thousands of years ago. No? In the ancient cultures, looking at what is beyond that. No? What is beyond this sky? What is all those things shining in the sky? And it seems that we are achieving that moment in which we can look closer to what's all out there, and start to answer some questions from a scientific point of view. But if you look back more or less 500 years ago, and maybe the Europeans were making out the same question: what is beyond the sea? What is out there? And then some guy called Christopher Columbus traveled, and after a few days he found some people living in some land. I'm half part of that people and half part of the travelers. But the thing is that imagine if we are in this moment, maybe it could be similar to that moment, like finding new life that we didn't know that existed. It's like if just suddenly in the Curiosity rover in Mars, someone is just handshaking, saying hello. No? But what is really interesting is that in the same 15th century, there was a very important discovery for humankind. It's the invention of a printing press by Gutenberg, which actually accelerated the transmission of knowledge between people. When some of the works that just had to be reproduced and spread all over the world, and that it is not a casualty that the 15th century is the beginning of the end of the medieval age. The medieval age, cities closing walls, all the knowledge condensed within these walls, and then thanks to the printing press, that knowledge started to be exchanged between cities, and basically that's the beginning of the Renaissance. And again, cities changing, cities being open beyond the walls, the knowledge traveling across, not only between Europe but also between Europe and America. Actually, it's really interesting to see most of the cities founded in America follow the Roman model. So it's like a 2,000-year-old model. It's still working, no? But then during the Renaissance, also there is a high advance on technology again, and science, of course. And then, you can make the math. No, it's the beginning of the first industrial revolution, or the Taylorism, which people call it. No, it's the replacement of the work of the man by the machine, mainly in Manchester and London, and the late 18th century, beginning of the 19th century, which actually was at the same time, a few hundred years later, the beginning of the second industrial revolution, or that same model of the Taylorism evolved into what some people call the Fordism. It's basically take the same principle of textile industry to the production line. In this case, is picturized in the 40 model at the late 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century. So, if you think about, thinking again back in time, the medieval city of the medieval age, most of the things were produced within those walls of the city, right? And then with the introduction of industrialization and the machines, all the production started to travel farther and farther from where we live. In the medieval age, the place that you were living maybe is the place that you were working at the same time. But then production and consumption started to be separated. but also the knowledge of production that was also started to be separated from the consumption. What is interesting is that, again, at the beginning of the 20th century, there are two main, let's say, how do you call it, events that changed humanity again. You know, the First and Second World War basically accelerated the production of technology into a level that we didn't do in many years behind. Things like the plastics were invented thanks to the military industry, or if you think about like things that are so stupid like the microwave was actually an accidental invention. When some research being done with microwave antennas, that some guy had a chocolate in his pocket and it was melting. So that's the beginning of the microwave in the military industry. And you can follow. I know you can go and go and go. Or industries like DuPont or 3M. All these brands are coming from the military industry, powered by war. And what happens is that even computers. If you think about Alan Turing, his work was mainly related on trying to decipher the message that is being exchanged by the Nazis. And then from that, he was the foundations of the algorithms and computation. What happened is that after the First and Second World War finished, or the Second World War finished, all those inventions were into industry, were into society, and it was available for everyone. No? And one of those is a computer. So if you think about a computer, at that time, is what, if you go to the room of a Fab Lab, it's more or less the same size. And it could do barely, I don't know, I cannot compare how many more things my cell phone does than that computer 70 years ago, right? So what happened is that once you have an invention and you make it available for everyone, the rules change totally. So that's, again, what happened a few years later with the personalization of computation. Means that the price and usability becomes available for anyone to have a computer in their home. And also, another invention from the military industry came out into our hands, and it was the internet. I don't know, does anyone knows the girl in the right?
The image compression girl. That's
Yeah.
all I know.
It's called Elina. It's a playmate. It's a Swedish playmate actually, and she didn't know that she was. She was really considered like a goddess between the geek world, inside the geek world, because it was like the first ever digitally compressed image and broadcasted within the ARPANET. And the ARPANET was basically an internet of cities that maintained the communication between American cities in the case of nuclear attack by the Russians. Okay, and that's the beginning of the internet. So first, we have achieved that we have personal computation during history. We achieved from those steam machines 200 years ago. Now we have computers in our pockets, and soon we will have it embedded in our bodies. We have internet, meaning that as we had the printing press in the 15th century, we are now able. We don't need to wait until things are being printed. We can real-time share information and knowledge. But still, we are relying on a model that is maybe 150 years old, which is centralized production. Okay, so in this centralized production model, which we call PITO. PITO is a bad word in Spanish, actually. It stands for product in, trash out, right? So whatever we need in cities, we import it, and whatever we produce is trash. Furthermore, we don't use that trash. And on top of that, you extract, all the cycle of a material is very evil, because you extract the material from some place, you don't leave any added value in that place, then you transport to a factory where you have slaves working for you to keep the low prices, then you ship those things to the center of consumption, then people consume, produce trash, and that trash goes back to the third world, and everyone happy. and on top of that, there is a lot of consumption of fossil fuels, of course. No, so this is PITO, yeah, and what is, again, this is basically what comes out of this model. But what is even more sad is that we are being standardized. It seems like it's been the Fordism applied to the humanism. So it's like, I don't know, we are like a new Model T. We are all the same stamp. We are wearing more or less the same clothes from the same brands. We are in our pockets. We have like the same equipment, most of us, and even worse, you can travel anywhere in the world and you can find more or less the same brands owning that, the piece of the cake. Sometimes they have a different hat, but basically behind is the same brand. So it means like that besides the fact that all these things are bad for the environment, these things bad for our own knowledge. We are really not familiarized with what is making anymore. So I don't know how many of you have something that you made by yourself and you're wearing it, using it, or in your pocket. The percentage is, we have like a 2% of people that have done that. It's increasing. And the thing is that, at the end of the day, what you produce in terms of physical things is trash. And I'm not talking about your own trash. It's a trash like from external material. So what happened if we change the personal personal computers are great, I think. Internet is great. Communicating knowledge allows the acceleration, the innovation, and the evolution of humanity. But then what happens if we introduce a distributed production model? No? So this is what we call a DIDO model. It's data in, data out. It means that all the cycle of the matter is closed within the city limits or reasonable city limits. It means that whatever the city needs to use to consume is being produced at least in a reasonable distance from it. And then whatever comes in and out between cities and in a global network is just data, it's information. So everything is designed or somewhere in South Africa is just available for someone else in Amsterdam in real time. And this is happening maybe in a very low level with Fab Labs, hackerspace, and those kind of spaces. But what happens is we take that into a city scale. No? So if you think about today, trying to make a comparison, some people is saying, okay, maybe 3D printer, it could be like the new printing press of that 15th century. That's what's really going to change the world. Maybe. 3D printers are the 3D print stands for, because it's printing, not the maker bots are not supposed to be called 3D printers, but actually 3D printer technologies was invented like almost 30 years ago, more or less, in the 80s. And it was an experiment at MIT in which they were using print heads and they were exchanging ink and replacing it by, it's like the C-Corp works, no? So replace the ink and then just use glue and then add a layer on the material. Sometimes, most of the times it's a powder. Then solidifies that layer and then puts another layer, very, very thin, and then it's constructing, slicing objects. No? That's why 3D printer is called 3D printing. But as I said, there are different technologies. There is inkjet 3D printing, or you can find other kind of technologies in 3D printing, like just using a liquid resin and then solidifying layer by layer again by using the different frequencies of light. Right? So if you go to the dentist, they put something in your teeth, and then you get a UV light, and then hardens that material. So basically, that's the principle. It's not that a Star Trek kind of thing. And then the fused position modeling is what most of the consumer 3D printers are using. Is basically they're melting a plastic material, ABS or PLA, and then it's just 3 motors moving in space. 3 motors in a technology that was invented 70 years ago. And if you think about our grandmothers have been doing cakes and doing this from ages, so that's I think is not really what is going to change the future. But what I would like to say, a few things about 3D printing. What is really changing is how we think, and I think as the internet and the personal computers became available for everyone, I think there is a point of disruption in which 3D printing went from big companies owning technology into anyone being able to make their own printer or to get accessible prices to 3D printers. So if you think that this is more or less the year 2005, 2006, Adrian Boyer and Vic Oliver in the University of Bath, they invented the RepRap project. Most of you might know it, but basically it's a printer that can print some of its own pieces. No? So it's a self-replicating 3D printer, just in some pieces. And what basically does is that until that time, Stratasys had the technology of fused position modeling in a machine built by Stratasys. It's was maybe $30,000, and you can assemble a RepRap for $600 in parts, maybe less, in some of your time. So what happened is that there are some very, very, very clever people in New York working on NY Resistor, Brepetis, and friends. And they took this model and they put a kit together that you can buy online and assemble your own printer. And then it became MakerBot. And then MakerBot, from being a toolkit, it became an open source product that you can buy, and it was plug and play. And then from being an open source product, it became a closed source product, and now it's being sold to a company, as I was mentioned before, but to Object Stratasys, which actually is fighting with 3D Systems for the control of the whole market of 3D printing. So this had happened in less than 10 years, and then we don't know what's coming along. But then, besides the fact that you can translate digital information into physical information, something that is very interesting also is that you can have any physical object and scan it maybe with your mobile phone and then print it or fabricate it. So this relationship between the physical and digital world is being more fluid right now. And if you put it on top of internet and on top of personal computers, you have like the perfect mix for what some people call a revolution. So if you think about the comparison between home printers of paper, how many of you have a paper printer at home? It's a lot in Denmark. It was that question. So usually in other parts of the world, some people is not using that much paper printers in their homes. I mean, and it's decreasing the usage of paper printers in the home. And then what I think is that the usage of 3D printers might not be that interesting if you have it in your own desktop or in your office. No. What I like this quote from Neil Gershenfeld. It's one of the fathers, accidental father of the Fab Labs, if you want to call it like that. It's like all this interest about 3D printing. It could be compared with the microwave interest in the 50s. They're nice, they're convenient, but they cannot replace the entire kitchen. In this case, the kitchen is what we call Fab Labs, digital fabrication laboratories, like the one that you can see here, that contains much more than 3D printing, and you can make many more things than a cube that is like 15 by 15 by 15. So basically, with a 3D printer, you cannot make a lot of things. I will show you. And if you compare this room, the size of this room can be, if you compare it with the ENIAC or this first computer 70 years ago, you can also imagine what is about to come. No, you cannot predict what's about to come. So in Fab Labs, you can make things like a house, you can make things like a boat, you can make things like your own circuit boards, or your own skateboards. So kids can come and make their own skateboards. That's really funny because I remember I used to skateboard when I was a kid, and I was convincing my parents to buy me a skateboard, and I was trying to get good grades for them to buy it. So I was learning how to manipulate them. And then what is really disruptive here is that you learn how to make it, and then you fuck your parents. It's that you go and make it to the Fab Lab, no? That's it. And you get the knowledge of making it. Then after these kids made those skateboards, we're trying to buy them for them, making a joke, like we're offering like €100, and they say, no, it's mine, it's customized, it has my name, what do you want? No? So that tells you something about what is the importance of making these things. And these are things that they cannot do alone by themselves, even with the internet in their room. No? So, as I said, this space is about accessibility. Fab Labs tend to be cataloged as elitist, closed spaces, but they are curated. It's true, and maybe they have limited access. It's true, and but they are open for anyone to make anything, no? And different bases. And you will find more than 200 Fab Labs all over the world they are connected through the internet. And they share this kind of same principles in them. This basically is like playing football, I like to say like that. It's establishing like the same set of rules, so in this case, the same set of equipment and technology that allows for people, like Jens was traveling all over the world, and he just can grab a design and print it everywhere, or you can download a design made by Jens, or someone else can print anything by something designed in Lima, anywhere, right? So this is the growing network of Fab Labs, and I would like to share with you this is an unofficial launching of the platform for someone was asking for the doodle today. Yes. So if you go to fablabs.io, it's a project that we have been working within the Fab Foundation and Fab Lab Barcelona. Is basically creating like an online directory of Fab Labs and users of Fab Labs. And it's, the good thing about this is like horizontally distributed. It means that when you add a new Fab Lab, you add a referral to other Fab Lab, and then other Fab Labs say, yeah, I went there, this is a Fab Lab, good, cheers up. So you can go and go to the directory and check any Fab Lab as you want. If you want to sign in, you create your user and you submit your Fab Lab if you have a new Fab Lab, a real one, please. So you can go to the map as well, and you can navigate for regions. And this is what I said before. We have like, okay, right? Yeah. It's like around 150 Fab Labs all over the world. And if you want to look how, wait a second. Okay. If I go to labs, okay. And if I go to Spain, I will show my lab, of course. This is Fab Lab Barcelona page, so you can know who works there. You can contact them right away. You can see which machines you have available and so on. So this is the first, the very rough, and also you can see which are the nearby Fab Labs. So this is a way of trying to connect labs together and people also around those labs together. It's evolving. It's not ready, but I mean it's already online, so you can create your user and sign for this. So this is a Fab Lab network, and as I say, it seems to be the beginning of what some people call the third industrial revolution. The new revolution, the new industrial revolution was called also, but it's basically the localization of production. Again, it's nothing new. It's like using technology to go back and do what we know we do, how to do it. No? So sometimes it's well, okay, this is the Baker movement, but we make before, so it's nothing new, really. It's make again, and with a different set of tools, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some projects we do in the Fab Lab Barcelona. I'm okay with time?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and some facts about it is opening since 2007. It's the first Fab Lab in Europe if we don't count Norway as Europe.
First Fab Lab in the EU.
So we founded the Fab Academy with MIT CBA back in 2009. This is actually the launching meeting in the summer of 2008. We started with a group of Fab Labs in Spain, the Iberian Fab Association. So this, with the idea of trying to gather together, all the Fab Labs in Portugal and Spain. And then, for instance, if you have to talk with a machine dealer, you go as a group of people. You're more powerful than just going by one. You can go and talk. Give me a 10% discount in all the machines, or go to material suppliers and things like this, no? Or negotiate with the European funds. This kind of idea was behind the creation of the Iberian Fab Lab Association. Of course, we are part of the International Fab Lab Network, and this is the picture of the last Fab conference in Japan. It was the last time we met with Jens and with Rasmus. I don't know if he's here.
Yeah.
So, and then next year we're going to organize the 10th Fab Lab conference in Barcelona. It's from the 2nd to the 8th of July next year, so you can save those days if you want to come for a week of fabrication in the entire city of Barcelona. I will tell you why this is the entire city. So some projects we have developed during the last years. This is Smart Citizen. It's actually personally I co-founded this project 2 years ago. It's basically an Arduino compatible sensor board that anyone can get and install in their balconies and capture data about the pollution in the city and share it in an open databases. We did a Kickstarter campaign. We raised $68,000 through 500 backers all over the world in 30 days. This is how it looks like, the kit today, and it's being spread all over the world in this online platform that people is using to share that data. With Smart Citizen, we did an evolution of a project that is related with other principles, that is the open source beehives. It's basically developing an open source DigiFab beehive that you can download the designs, but actually you can embed sensors in the beehive to monitor the quality of environment for the bees. I don't know if you know, but the bees are disappearing, then they are responsible of the 30% of the food that we eat. So if the bees disappear, we will fucked up. So this is why we are doing this project, actually to create like an online community of monitoring how those bees are behaving and if they're happy or if their environment is good or bad. So another project we did a couple years ago as well in 2010 is the Fab Lab house. It's a complete a complete house fabricated in a Fab Lab. The shape of the house is actually modeled by the place where it is located. So it actually takes advantage of the solar path, the sun path in different parts of the world, and then the design is adapted to that to produce more energy, because on top of these are the flexible solar panels that produce, actually this one was producing in summer twice as the energy that it needs to function. It's made of wood out of a solar material. We did it for the solar decathlon competition in Europe in 2010. The house is downloadable in internet. It's on our wiki.fablabdcn.org. You can make it if you have around 50 people in 3 months. And actually, in terms of the competition, we totally lost it. We were the last ones. Yes, because the organization was taking points out of you if there was many people. They had a limit of 6 people maximum between, I don't know, it was like a lot of hours during the day. So we were overcrowded most of the time, and then it was some point that no return, that we knew that we were like, I don't know, never going to recover those points. And then we started to organize parties, and then we just throw parties, cutting like the leg of ham, Spanish ham, and wine. And then I think that's why we won the People's Choice Award. Then, well, the house now is we had to dismount it. We didn't have the money to reassemble it again, but we have another model that is sitting in the sea. And if you go to Barcelona in 2010, you will see a fab cafe in this place that is called. This house actually is located in one of the nicest spots of Barcelona. You see these 2 towers, and for those that you have been in Barcelona, it's like if you are standing in front of Sagrada Familia, and if you look to the sea, this big avenue. At the end of that avenue, there are 2 towers. So the house is just in front of those 2 towers, and the sea is in front of the house. So we will have a fab lab there for the next Fab conference. Hopefully, we are convincing the people that it's going to manage it. But that's the evolution of the Fab house. And going to another scale of projects, we just acquired like 3 years ago 130 hectares in the mountains of Barcelona, just like 15 minutes driving from the city center. Is the Green Fab Lab, and it's basically this will be a research center focused on self-sufficiency in the production of food, energy, and objects. And we have the Green Fab Lab supporting the different cycles of the matter. For instance, how you can trace where a chair comes from which tree, and is geotagged, and especially in a specific point of that place. Also thinking about the creation of new materials. We were talking before with Mete, and then imagine if this Fab Lab starts to pop out, and we keep using stupid materials like acrylic. To produce 1 kilogram of acrylic, you need 2 kilograms of oil. Or using stupid plywood that uses like a lot of toxic glues that actually really damages the laser filters most of the time. So the idea behind this is we need to think in new materials. We need to think on new sources of materials, and we strongly think that trash is actually will be the new raw material, and we want to do it there. And it's not about cutting more trees, but actually taking what we already took from nature and try to reuse it. And then the energy lab is associated with a biomass plant that we are developing, aeolic or wind turbines, solar energy, and also hydrogen. And then the food lab is actually related with some principles of permaculture, but we want to call it advanced permaculture, and it's actually starting to understand the environment and the production of food from different perspectives, also associated with the kilometer zero kind of approach in food consumption. Well, then the Fab City. To finish, the Fab City is a project that we are working together with the City Council of Barcelona. And to put you in context, the people that founded IAC, the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, mainly three guys, Vicente Guayat, Willy Muller, and Antoni Vives. They are now a chief architect of the city, the deputy mayor of urbanism, and the director of one of the biggest regional agencies of Barcelona. So we are basically running the city. We are taking these ideas in a city scale. And then this is the deputy mayor presenting the project in Lima back in 2011 during the FAB conference in Lima. And the idea is to, if we understand Barcelona, as I said before, we had the Roman city, the medieval city, the industrial city, the modern city. What will be the city of tomorrow? No? So this new city of tomorrow is based on the principles of self-sufficiency, talking from the point of view of energy, talking from the point of view of the production of things within the city itself. So this is the vision of the new mayor of Barcelona. And this is what the Fab City project is today. This is the Fab Lab Barcelona, which I work with colleagues. This is the Green Fab Lab, which is also funded by us. Actually, this is it's almost a straight line from the sea to the mountains. These are the two new Fab Labs started by the City Council. We talked about public funds and conceiving Fab Labs as a public service. So it's a new approach of this new equipment. If you think someone was talking about libraries 2.0, yes, this will be the new the new urban equipment. You say it like that opened by the city of Barcelona in the coming future, and this is how it should look in the next 6 years. So if you think about, it's not repeating the same type of Fab Labs in each neighborhood. It's actually Fab Labs that are being developed, that they can develop a specialization depending on their context. They don't have the exact same set of technologies. So basically, you think about the city as a laboratory, and then you have the rooms of the laboratories are the Fab Labs now. So instead of having one big, massive laboratory, you distribute the laboratory in the city. So that's the idea of a Fab City. This is how it looked like 10 months ago, one of those. This is how it looks today. Fancy renovated. There is people there sometimes. It's just starting. And this is the other Fab Lab that has been a little bit problematic. It's in a very depressed area. People they say that we don't have jobs, and you're putting here like an MIT elitist organization. And then they were looking for like a food bank. And then the government didn't give a response to them, and then just basically invaded this space and said, we don't want a Fab Lab, we just want a food bank. Okay, and then who's gonna bring the food? And then we don't know. We want our jobs back, okay, but then your jobs are not going to come back. The jobs in construction are gone in Spain and will be gone for a while. And then if the services jobs also, they're being gone. So the idea of this type of Fab Lab is actually to promote the new professional training, basically. And if you think about in the industrial era, you were training, this kind of intermediate education was based on learning people how to use a machine in a repetitive way. So now we should think in a different set of learning skills that should be embedded into people to be part of this. So to summarize, again, the information, computation, and production are part of the formula that I already explained, but people should be the center of this formula. And it's basically, if no machine will do a task for us, and it will be not that easy always, no? So the machines are so stupid that they only do that what we tell them to do. And that's sometimes people do not understand. And just again, the 3D printing hype that was mentioned before. It's great. It's cool. I think it's like really good, like an education tool. But I think that there are many new things are coming along. So if you're trying to get into 3D printing, that's great. But think about what the possibilities of the future. In that instead of using a stupid machine, you can have intelligent materials in which you can embed codes and then you can program them. You are in the country of Lego. And most of those principles are based in Lego. So imagine if we have like a micron scale Lego assemblers that can be a computer, you can disassemble, there is no trash on it. and the next day could be a projector, the next day could be a car. So that's it. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Any questions?
When you do the Fab City
Yeah.
with all the different workshops, what do you do to connect them more than just having the different workshops?
Yeah, well, this is like the very early stage. Yeah, right now, we haven't done anything, to tell you the truth.
All right.
We're just by mostly working on getting those phase done, on getting the machines installed in one of them, like in one of the municipality ones. And the idea is, I don't know, is to be, as long as we are evolving, trying to implement things to make those connected. No? So I think it's very hard to approach these kind of new things. When you talk about innovation, it's really, I think, stupid to evaluate innovation, for instance. No? When you're approaching something new, which tools you use to evaluate it, or which methods you approach it. Basically you have to construct as long as you are evolving. No? I mean, the idea of keeping those Fab Labs with different set of tools and trying to, from the beginning, say, okay, this could be the approach. We say, for instance, in these two new labs, we say one of them could be focused on accessibility, people with reduced mobility, or health, and then the other Fab Lab more into urban regeneration and social innovation. No? So that's the problematic one. So we give those characters from the beginning, but we don't know how they are going to evolve as well. So we think that we should be open to have change during the evolution. Also, we say we should have at least one Fab Lab per district. That's the plan. Those are 10 districts in Barcelona, but it's not like if there are some two organizations that they want a Fab Lab. It's no. We just want one Fab Lab per district. You know, it's like this kind of being flexible enough, but having like the roadmap very clear. And I think the tools will be built on the way. I think that in terms of the tools, I think that, for instance, in Fab Labs in general, we didn't have something like this until now. We have like mostly like forums on some kind of a wiki. So everyone was doing their own thing and was really disarticulated. And then this more or less starts to be like you start to know, okay, how many Fab Labs are in the world? Maybe you see like there are different maps, but this is actually labs or dots in a map that is being taken care by people that they own those places. It's not someone creating a map to show that there are a lot of Fab Labs. It's like these are popping up because people register those Fab Labs there, and they manage those places. So I think these kind of tools are the ones that will allow for the Fab Labs to exchange more things, not only in the global level, but if we scale this down, I think it could be one approach. Could be like if you have like the city repository of Barcelona, and then that city repository will have designs that they work for Barcelona, right? But if you have to go to the Odense repository, I mean, there's some designs for Barcelona, they are for a different climate, right? So you start to imagine that you have like the object repository by cities. So that's when I think it becomes interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was just imagining at the point of the question. I was imagining like a live video feed of all the different labs or something like in all the different labs.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's the thing. If you're in a city, you are in a driving, walkable, bikeable, or public transport instance, and you don't need to go for a video if you want to see what's happening there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you might go there. So.
You asked how many people are printers. I think it's also I like the question: how much of the printed media you consume did you print on your own printer?
I know what you mean.
No?
Yeah.
Was this printed on your printer or?
No. That's the thing. I mean, we have a printer in the lab, but we printed tickets for airplanes. HP wanted to. It's going to sponsor us to a few Fab Labs. It's like, what do you print? It's like, we have to, I don't know, which is your volume of printing per week? I don't know, depending on how much I travel. But exactly, people do not print. That's it.
The printer at home, I use it for tickets.
Yeah, not in the media. The photos. No? Like photos are everywhere. No? The photos are in the pocket, in the computer. You want to see them. It's not even the photos are not. They're not owned by a device even. They are in the cloud.
What do you think will happen then? I mean, as I understand, HP are supposed to be bringing out commercial 3D printers as early as next
They
year.
failed.
They
failed so badly. I mean, that's the biggest failure. They had the office in Barcelona. I went to visit them like a couple of weeks ago. And they said like straight into their head, their face, you failed so much. Because they bought the technology from Stratasys in the same moment that Red Wraps and MakerBots were blooming. So they were HP came, they just got the Stratasys Dimension, actually one model after that one, I think, like a smaller one, the one that you have here, and it's the same machine, and they just put HP, right? And then they were selling that machine for 20,000 euros, and then you can buy at the same time, or or download the plans to make a Red Wrap for less than 1,000. So it was exactly the same time. I remember it because we were doing a project. It was like 2009, I think, more or less. And by that moment, MakerBot was shipping already the kits. And then like 18 months later, MakerBot started to ship like a complete assembled replicator. And it totally destroyed HP. That was destroyed HP. Which is funny because at the end, the technology that HP bought MakerBot. So Stratasys, that was the company that sold the technology to HP, just bought MakerBot. But yeah, they closed the 3D printing division in Barcelona.
Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.